Welcome everybody to what I think will be a relatively quick question crunch this time, focusing on the basic computations associated with the yield to maturity and bond pricing when supplied with a required market rate of return, a discount rate, or indeed yield to maturity, all those terms being synonymous. So let's just crack these 6 questions to get you ready to solve the more challenging computational ones later on in the curriculum. Number 1, a bond has a coupon rate of 4% and a yield to maturity of 6%. How does the bond's price compare to its par value? So many of the questions here will actually feature numbers, but will require no computations, even when it seems like it's obviously a computational question. You just have to know certain relationships. And from the video, directly preceding this this question crunch, you should remember that if the coupon rate, in this case 4%, is lower as it is than the yield to maturity, the yield to maturity being really the required rate of return that investors seek, then investors will get their way. They will achieve the 6% by pricing the bond at below par. So answer A is correct. The bond will be priced below par because the deficiency in the coupon not being enough to kind of meet the investor's requirements, which is a full 6% over here, will be compensated for by a lower bond price, the discount. That's how the investors will arrive at their required yield, even when the coupon is not sufficient. Number 2, under which 3 conditions does an investor's actual return equal the bond's yield to maturity at purchase? So this goes back to a theme which may be, tested in the exam theoretically, namely the fact that the yield to maturity is very much the same thing as the so-called internal rate of return, and you need to know the 3 conditions necessary for the investor to realize a yield, a return equal to the IRR, the internal rate of return, or in the case of the bonds, the yield to maturity. Well, first of all, the bond has to be held to maturity. So you have to ignore any answers that talk about the bond being sold before maturity. I mean, it can be sold before maturity, but it will have to be sold for a very specific price, lying on the so-called price yield trajectory. But for the time being, just ignore anything like sold before maturity. The yield to maturity is only realized. The yield to maturity is only realized when you really hold the bond to maturity. So it has to be held to maturity, and we've got that appearing over here and over here. There is nothing about what the bond price ought to be when you purchase it. So, the bond being purchased at par, that's wrong. But there needs to be no default. That's absolutely correct. So this is correct. That would have been correct as well. And the coupons on the bond have to be reinvested at the yield to maturity, not the coupon rate, that's wrong, but at the yield to maturity, and that appears over here and over here, but it's only that combination as supplied by answer C, which is correct. No default, the bond has to be held to maturity, and any cash flows which the bond generates need to be reinvested at the YTM. Which typically does not happen, is unrealistic, so the YTM is not really a perfect measure of anticipated return. Number 3, a 4-year bond pays a 6% coupon semi-annually with par value equal to $100. Market discount rate is 4%. What is the bond's price? Now, this will strike you as an evidently numerical question, but resist the temptation to solve it using your calculator. I mean, I will do it on the calculator, but you don't have to use your calculator. You just have to really pay attention to the relationship between the bond's coupon rate, being 6%, and the market discount rate, which is the same as saying the required yield in the market for bonds of these type, or the yield to maturity. If the coupon rate is higher than the discount rate, it means the bond is sort of producing a higher coupon than what the market requires. And therefore, investors will bid up the price just to get their hands on this bond. That will pretty much always yield, or always not yield, maybe let's use a different word, always lead to the bond being priced at a premium. People will be paying quite a lot for this bond just to get their hands on it. And, you know, sometimes just this observation alone will be enough to answer a question. The question right here, there's only one answer that is at premium to par, and that's the par being 100. That's C. But we can absolutely go and do this on the calculator. So if you've got, you know, if the question says the bond is a 4-year bond, but it pays a coupon semi-annually, then, as you should remember from what we did in the video on this specific topic, you double the count, the year count, so as to reflect semi-annual periods. There are 4 times 2, namely 8 semi-annual periods in the lifetime of that bond. Its coupon is 6%, and it is a 100 par value or face value dollar bond. So the PMT, the periodic payment, but this is per period, with there being 8 periods in the whole lifetime of the bond, is not going to be 6% of 100. It's going to be 6% divided by 2 of 100, which is 3. So let me just say we get that by doing 6 over 2. But this isn't 6% divided by 2. It's 6% of 100 divided by 2. This can catch you out sometimes, right? And then FV, the future value of the bond, is its par. That's 100. And then the market discount rate, which we input in the calculator as I over Y, that's going to be 4. Now this is in percent, divided by 2, or 2. Right, let's get these inputs in and compute PV. That's what we're asked for, although I'm pretty certain it has to be answer C. So 8 for N, 3 for PMT, 100 for FV, and 2 for I over Y. Compute PV. Okay, you can see the answer comes in at 107.33 approximately. Negative, of course, just to account for the difference in cash flows in, cash flows out. That just confirms our thinking. It has to be answer C, but don't waste your time in the exam solving this. There's no point. Right, the next one. The next question. Number 4, a 3-year bond pays a 3% coupon semi-annually with a par value of 100. It is priced at 94.49. What is its yield to maturity? Okay, now once again, potentially you may think, okay, let's try to be clever, and you should always try to be clever and try to save time. Look at the relationship here. We've got a coupon rate which is 3%, you're not given a yield to maturity or a market discount rate, but you are given a price. So use that. If the bond price is lower than par value, as it is quite significantly, you've got 94.49 versus 100. What is that telling you? Well, it's telling you that the coupon which the bond pays is not sufficient to meet investors' expectations. So coupon rate is not enough to cover the required rate of return. So coupon rate is lower than the yield to maturity or required rate of return. So the answer has to be, it can't be 3, it has to be either 5 or 6, therefore. You've boiled the choice down to 5 or 6, which is, if you don't have time, still better than shooting. If you're going to shoot and guess, it's better to guess from a narrower spectrum than it is from 3 options. But let's solve this properly. Here you do need your calculator. Right, so for N, we're going to take the fact that it's a 3-year bond, but still minding the fact that it pays coupons semi-annually. We're going to do 3 times 2, or 6. That's going to be our N. The PMT, the coupon, is going to be 3% of 100 per annum. The coupon rate is always stated per annum, so is the discount rate. But that 3% of 100, we need to divide by 2. So in the end, what this comes down to is 1.5. So this 1.5 is 3% of 100 divided by 2. Then for a V, we're going with 100. That's the par value. And the price is 94.49, so that's our PV. Please make this the opposite sign to your FV and your PMT. Otherwise, if you don't, make this negative. Your calculator will get confused, and we will be solving for I over Y, won't we? Okay. Now, I'm going to clear my time value of money worksheet by pressing second FV, and now 6 for N, 1.5 for PMT, 100 for FV, 94.49 negative for my PV. And let's compute I over Y. I get a nice 2.5. Now, 2.5 does not feature on the list of possible answers, although, it probably should, because it's such an obvious answer to pick, and it's wrong. Whatever your calculator spits out, it should be spitting out a 2.5% I over Y. You need to double, because this is the yield required on a per period basis, but the period here is semi-annual. So we need to double that to make it annual, and you arrive, therefore, or we arrive at a nice 5%. That's the correct answer, B. So that's the tricky, let's say, question here, something to be mindful of. Only 2 left. So number 5, a 10-year bond pays a 5% coupon semi-annually with par value of USD 1,000. The market discount rate is 3%. What is the bond's price? Given the way the answers have been provided, this is a question you should do in a couple of seconds. Look at the coupon rate. Look at the market discount rate. They're always going to be stated in the same sort of on the same basis, i.e., annualized. So don't worry about having to double one or the other, and don't ever be fooled into thinking that because the coupon rate is semi-annual, this is the rate paid per 6 months. No, it's always the rate paid per the entire year. The coupon rate, therefore, being 5%, is higher than the discount rate, that being 3%. And that should convince you that the bond will trade at a premium. The bond trades at a premium, obviously, to par value, and there's only one answer where that is the case, and it's answer A. We can, of course, prove that to ourselves on the calculator. Let's look at the inputs. It's a 10-year bond, but paying coupons semi-annually. So we do, 10 years times 2, that's going to be 20. Then for that coupon, so that's going to be PMT. And this is where you have to be careful. Don't do just 5 over 2 like I was doing before, because this is a percentage, and the coupon PMT input on your calculator has to be supplied as a sort of dollar figure, as a currency figure. So it is 5% of 100. Sorry, not 100 this time. It's 1,000. That's where the trick is, because 5% of 100 would be 5. But now you make that 50. 5% of 1,000, 50, i.e. divided by 2 to make it per period. And that gives you 25. If you input for PMT 2.5, as I did when I was sort of just getting ready to shoot this video, I was getting completely stupid answers until I remembered, I made the par value 1,000 here for a reason, and I forgot about the reason. This can happen to you in the exam as well. And of course, if the examiner is is kind of is in a good mood. They'll in a good mood from in the point of view of setting tough questions. That they will have an answer in there which exploits that weakness. Right, the market discount rate is 3, so that's going to be our I over Y, and now it's just going to be 3% divided by 2, namely 1.5. This one is provided as a percentage figure. Our FV is, of course, 1,000, and that should be it. Let's compute. Well, let's first clear the time value of money worksheet. 20 for N, 50 divided by 2, or 25. That's the input for PMT. 1.5 is the input for I over Y. 1,000 is the FV input, and we're computing PV here. Yeah, 1,171.69. Very nicely fits in with answer A. And to finish off, the final one of these questions is theoretical. Which of the following bonds is most likely to have a negative yield to maturity? A newly issued bond with a 4% coupon trading at par value. Well, no. If a bond is trading at par value, which is actually very often the case with newly issued bonds. Newly issued bonds typically are assigned a coupon, especially corporate bonds, are given a coupon that allows them to trade close to par value. But if something trades at par value, it means its yield to maturity will be close to 4%, i.e. the coupon rate. That's the reason why something trades at par value. Its required rate of return is equal to the coupon rate. What about C, a bond trading at a discount to par value with a positive coupon? Well, if you have a positive coupon, let's say 4%, and the bond trades below par value, it means that the YTM on that bond is higher than the coupon rate. Investors are seeking even a higher return. That's why the bond is below par. So the only answer left is B, and that's going to be the correct one. A bond issued at a high yield in the past, whose price has appreciated significantly since issuance. Yes, and I've seen such bonds, corporate bonds in the past. Let's say you had a corporate bond issued when the company, the issuer, was in a bit of trouble. Let's say they had a rating that was reflected of a high yield, i.e. a more risky company. And then subsequently things got better, the corporate situation improved, and the bond got the rating was improved to sort of investment grade. All of a sudden, the price jumps up, and as the price jumps, the yield falls and may even become negative. Especially if all around you the yields are negative, as was the case in many places around the world. Not so many years ago, at the time of COVID, for example. So 6 answer is B, and that concludes our exploration of the questions associated with bond pricing and TVM.